Today we're going to make something called stuffed garlicky mushrooms. They're really fragrant, they're very simple to make, and super delicious for the holidays. I'm going to make probably close to a dozen, and they're going to be like bite-sized mushrooms, so they're more like for an hors d'oeuvre. Like you can serve it with Italian food before, or you can have it just as an hors d'oeuvre, an appetizer at Christmas time or New Year's. It's a really super easy recipe. You're going to have like fresh basil, or you can have dried basil, salt, pepper, a little bit of oregano. You're going to have, I put a lot of garlic in it, so it could be anywhere from 4 to 6 cloves. And I have some small little onions, or you can use any kind of onions. It all depends on how many you want to make. That depends on how much of each ingredient you're going to use. You can chop everything by hand, or you can use a food processor to make it real chunky. It's not going to be minced fine. It's going to be a little chunky. So I'm going to show you how to make this wonderful appetizer. So to begin with, the first thing we're going to do is come over to our stove and preheat our oven to 400 degrees. That's the first step. You want your oven warm when the mushrooms are ready to go in. So that's our first step. So the first thing you're going to want to do is, if you rinse and wash your mushrooms, you're going to want to dry them. Some people don't wash them. They just take a paper towel and kind of brush off everything. I wash them first, and then I kind of dry them off with a paper towel. So that's the first step you want to do, is prepare your mushrooms in that way. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take off the stems, and we're going to save these stems because those are going to be what go in part of the filling. So what you'll do is you'll cut your stem off first, then you'll take like a paring knife and you'll go around the edge here. And you want to hold it real firm so that the mushroom doesn't break, because they do break. So that's the first step. We're going to very carefully remove this stem because there's a little root to it here. Just like that. And then you're going to take a spoon, a small spoon, and you're going to kind of go around it and clean around the inside like this. Some people, and you can use the tip of it too, some people leave the gills in. I scrape them out. It's personal preference. It's whatever you want to do. So this is how you clean out the mushroom, just like this. So I'm going to clean all of these out, and I'll be back. I showed you at the beginning of the video our ingredients here. So basically you're going to have like a half an onion. You're going to have like 4 to 6 cloves of garlic. You're going to have oregano, and that's to taste. And there's also fresh basil in this little dish right here. Salt and pepper. So I will have all the amounts and ingredients in the description underneath. I am using some of these Cremini mushrooms that I had in the freezer. You're going to want to use mushroom stems and a few extra mushrooms that you're going to chop up for the filling. I happen to have these Cremini mushrooms, so I'm going to chop those up and use those as part of the filling as well. It's whatever you want to do, but some kind of mushrooms and stems. Okay, we have a little over a dozen mushrooms that we've cleaned out completely. These are the stems. And I actually broke a mushroom here, so we're going to chop that up too. And then this is what we cleaned out of the mushrooms. That's what we're going to throw out. So here are our mushrooms that are all cleaned out. This is part of what we're going to put in the filling. We're going to chop all that up. So you have all your ingredients, including the seasonings, which is, like I said, oregano, basil, salt, and pepper. This is everything that you're going to chop up, that you're going to stuff the mushrooms with. The mushroom stems and a few extra mushrooms that you might want to put in if you don't have any. I'm using my Cremini mushrooms also because I had some in the freezer. And then a half of onion, and I have 2 small little onions. So what you can do is chop everything up, and it's going to be like a kind of a chunky fine, These here are going to be chopped up a lot finer. So then we're going to put them in a food processor. If you don't have a food processor, you can just chop everything up. But like for instance, the onions, I'm going to kind of chop them a little like this. Kind of like this before I put them in the food processor. So the food processor doesn't have to do quite as much work. So I'm going to kind of do like this. And same thing with the garlic. I'm going to chop it up a little before I put it in the food processor. And I'll show you that in a moment. And then I'm just going to kind of chop up the stems a little. But all of this is going to go in the food processor, and I'll show you how the consistency should be. Okay, so we'll take the lid off, and then all of this is the combination and our seasoning here, and we're going to put like a 1/4 cup of olive oil in. So here you have everything in the food processor, and here is our olive oil. We're going to pour in about a 1/4 cup, and we might have to put a little more, but we'll wait and see. And now what you're going to do is pulse. So now we're going to take some of the sides that are here and kind of push them down. We almost have it to how we want it, but we're just going to push the rest that's on the sides, push it down, and pulse a few more times. Here we go. So this is the consistency we're looking for. Everything's kind of a chunky ground. So now we're going to stuff them. One thing you want to make sure is you have enough salt, so you can taste this yourself and see if it's to your liking. I added a little more salt. So this is exactly the consistency you want. It's really delicious. So the next step is we're going to stuff these mushrooms, and this size, like a 9 by 9, 8 by 8, should fit all your mushrooms in. And there's no way that we could possibly predict exactly how many mushrooms this is going to stuff. We can just kind of guesstimate. You want to fill these, but you don't want to overfill them, because it will, when they're baking, they're going to bake at 400 degrees for about 12 minutes, but everyone's oven is different. So you're going to just, kind of keep an eye on them, but it's about 12 minutes. So these look so good, and they're very garlicky. That's why they're called garlicky, stuffed garlicky mushrooms. It's really nice if you have a food processor. It makes it, so much easier to get it at this consistency instead of chopping, because you're mixing all your olive oil and everything, so it gives it kind of a wet, pasty type of consistency. So the reason I got little mushrooms, they're not large mushrooms and they're not tiny, they're just kind of a small medium, because I like these as an hors d'oeuvre when you have people over, like for New Year's or any time, Christmas. They just have a little thing, a little tiny hors d'oeuvre they can just kind of pop in their mouth, or it's not overwhelming, because there's always lots of side dishes and then dinner's coming, so it's nice not to fill up on them. So I always get the smaller ones. Years ago, when I first started making stuffed mushrooms, I got these huge mushrooms, and you can do that as well. So I'm just going to finish these up. So here they are. They're all ready to go in the oven. So this is how you want them. I could add a couple of extra. I did have quite a bit left over. I do have more mushrooms, so I am going to finish them off later. So we're going to go put this in a 400-degree oven. There they go. You put them on the middle rack, 400-degree temp, for about 10 to 12 minutes. I'm going to start with 10. Usually it's right about 12 minutes. Okay, here they are. We just took them out of the oven. All the juice there is from the mushrooms. You can take a spoon and pour it over the mushrooms to give it a little more flavor if you'd like. Okay, we're going to cut one of these in half and try it. So you can see how that looks from the side, how delicious that looks. We're going to give these a try. If you love garlic, you're gonna love these. These are very, very flavorful. Have you ever gone to a restaurant, like a seafood restaurant, and before you get there, you can smell the aroma of garlic and like butter? That's what this smells like, and it's really probably my favorite stuffed mushroom recipe. Mmm. They're unbelievable. They're supposed to be served hot, right out of the oven, like I would say 5 minutes. These are really, really fragrant. They have a lot of flavor. It reminds me of when I go into a seafood restaurant and they're serving like scampi or something that has a lot of butter and garlic. They're extremely flavorful. I think you will really love this recipe. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it turns out wonderful for you. Okay, beware, these are very garlicky. Today we're gonna make a different kind of stuffed mushrooms that I really love. They're called garlic